Trump administration officials are moving into military housing, costing U.S. taxpayers millions of dollars a year because they say they're afraid. Even as 42 million Americans are trying to figure out how to feed their children, Trump administration officials are spending millions of dollars a year in your taxpayer money because they're afraid. And in Stephen Miller's case, who was one of the most recent to move onto a military base with 24/7 security because he was fearing for his life and his family's safety because his neighbors were writing chalk messages to him on the sidewalk, a public sidewalk, not even his driveway, a public sidewalk outside his house. Same with Russell Voigt. Same with Pete Hegseth. And same with Kristi Noem. They've all moved on to military bases, and there's dozens more. Pretty much, if you're working the White House and people know where you live, Donald Trump is approving you to move on to a military base so you don't have to be confronted by U.S. citizens who you answer to and who you work for the atrocities you're committing in this country, to the tune of millions of dollars a year. Even as people go hungry, even as people are fearful how they're going to provide for their families, these people are fleecing America because they're afraid over chalk messages on a sidewalk.
Breaking news, guys, as there is a very serious situation developing as Trump has authorized strikes into Venezuela on land. This is according to new reporting from the Miami Herald, and they are going to target military installations on land in Venezuela. We're not sure if Nicolas Maduro, the leader of that country, is a target in these, but guys, this is taking things to a whole new level. This would be an act of war, attacking a sovereign nation unprovoked. And Trump has not requested authorization from Congress to do this, which is illegal. He has to do that. And he is not doing it and is just planning to go carry out these strikes. So we are going to have a major crisis on our hands once this happens. The strikes have not occurred yet, but our understanding is that they could happen at any time from here throughout the rest of the day into the weekend. So guys, buckle up because shit's about to hit the fan. What's even crazier is that the Department of Defense briefed senators yesterday on the strikes on these boats in the Caribbean. And they tried to exclude the Democrats from this briefing, and they finally got in and heard the information and are furious because the Department of Defense told them that they actually don't know who they've killed on these boats. They don't know. They might have been fishermen. They might have been drug cartel members. They have no clue. And these people are dead, and some of them and their parts are washing up onshore in islands in the Caribbean. It is time, people. Something has to happen here soon, and I hope the powers that be make a move and do what's necessary under our Constitution. Otherwise, we are going to be in a very, very serious mess here with a war that could expand into a much larger conflict should he carry out these strikes on land against Venezuela. Make sure you spread the word, share this, let everyone know, get everyone prepared, like, comment, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
Folks, there are a lot of schneedles yapping their fury about others receiving SNAP benefits. Meanwhile, our taxes are funding the salaries of leaders so determined to protect the pedos in government that they haven't worked in over a month. It should be widely known by now that most of the people on SNAP are kids, seniors, or disabled, or they're working full-time at jobs that don't pay enough to feed a hamster. But that's not the point. The point is the red dogs of America need someone to hate. They want visible shame, visible struggle. They say they hate waste. But let's talk about what we don't call waste. We spend $500,000 a flight, per flight, flying a handful of deportees out on military jets. $21 million for the optics of toughness. Then there's the swamp prison, a $500 million migrant detention camp plopped onto a protected ecosystem to cage people who just wanted to work. And while we're on waste, have you seen the Gestapo starter packs they're strapping ice baby men in these days? Billions in toughy tough guy gear for the losers in face socks. Gotta make sure the snazzies have their high on the thigh holsters. Sorry kids, no food for you. They flew generals in from all over the world. First class, military jets, the whole deal. To hear Pete Hegseth and Trump lecture them about discipline and fat generals. Yeah, but Red Dog thinks our tax dollars shouldn't be spent on people who need help. Here's the thing, Red Dog. I don't even have to shame you. You do a great job of that yourself. You're worried about other people being lazy because you assume everyone's lazy just like you. But the truth is the folks working 2 jobs and still coming up short are nothing like you. They have more dignity in a week than you've shown in your entire patriotic cosplay career. They're living the plot, while you're doing everything you can to take a big steaming dump on it. You don't hate waste. You hate mercy. You hate compassion. And aren't you lucky that cruelty is the only thing this administration is fully funding? Yeah. Well, Red Dog, have the day you deserve.
So Republicans have blocked at least 2 attempts by the Senate to extend the SNAP benefits during the shutdown. And I'm going to tell you about 2 of them. But in the meantime, Senator Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, has sent everyone home. He's closed the doors. Josh Hawley, the Republican senator of Missouri, you'll remember him as the runner on January 6th, even though he voted to cut SNAP benefits in the big, beautiful bill, he just introduced legislation to extend SNAP benefits during the government shutdown because he knows the people in his state of Missouri are going to starve. And he supposedly had enough Republicans to pass this bill, but Thune refused to bring it to the floor. And on Wednesday, Thune blocked an attempt by Senate Democrats to pass legislation to extend SNAP during the shutdown using what's called unanimous consent, all while Republicans are in federal court right now fighting so that they don't have to release the emergency funds that were literally set aside for this instance. Senate Republicans know that people in their state are going to starve. That's why 10 of them are trying to get this legislation passed through. The rest of them, they really don't care. And even out of the 10, they're only doing this to save their jobs. So now they're home at least until Monday, but we'll see what happens and I will keep you updated.
Well, well, well. It's Friday, baby. Happy Halloween to everybody. I'm not going to be pouring a whole lot of tea today. I've got things I got to do because it is Halloween, and we're going to go see the grandbaby later. We got ourselves a whole bunch of inflatable costumes for a Gen X party. I'm going to be Gizmo, honey, from the Gremlins. That's my little Gen X thing, and my life partner's going to be the Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a real good time with our grandbaby. But I did want to hop on here to say a few things about Daddy today. I woke up this morning to the news that he plans on striking inside of Venezuela. That's not true. No, he's going to come out to say that he has no intentions of striking inside of Venezuela today. But he took to his not-so-truths to say something we need to talk about, dear, because this just proves that Daddy don't know anything that's going on anywhere, and that he never reads beyond a headline, baby. He took to his not-so-truths to say that we have officially won the war on the climate hoax. Yes, folks. He says we've won the war on the climate change hoax. And the reason he says this, dear, and he goes on to talk about Bill Gates. He says Bill Gates finally has admitted that climate change was a hoax. That's not true. You see, if Daddy would have continued to read the article and the things that Bill Gates had to say, he would have seen expeditiously that Bill Gates does still believe in climate change. It's not a hoax, folks. But Bill says it's time to start spending money where it matters today, where it will help people today. He said we have a problem with poverty, lack of food for people to eat, and lack of affordable housing too. And Bill plans on spending some of his money to help that problem out, dear. So, no, Daddy, climate change is real. And if you would have read the rest of the article, you'd have been very mad at Bill, because he basically called you out to say that people should not be starving in the US of A. Or anywhere on the globe. People should have clean drinking water and a roof over their head. You know, those things that Daddy's taking away from you every single day. 42 million Americans will lose access to food tomorrow because of the orange hoe in the GOP. There is no affordable housing for you or for me. They're literally emptying buildings with their little frozen Gestapo crew so that other investors can come on in and buy up that affordable housing to turn them into luxury penthouses, dear. And Bill Gates can see the writing on the wall. Sorry, Daddy. You have failed everybody, one and all. Silly little fool. Bless his heart. Can't get past a headline or two.
Donald Trump just returned from Asia, and now he's ready to use the nuclear option. Because of the fact that the Democrats have gone stone cold crazy, the choice is clear. Initiate the nuclear option, get rid of the filibuster, and make America great again. Wow. So you mean to tell me that Donald Trump had the power to open the government the whole time? Wow. Once again, MAGA, he keeps making you all look like a bunch of fools. And then right after that, he went off on this unhinged rant. I just got back from Asia, where I met with leaders of many countries, including China, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and others. We already know that. It was a great honor to meet them, but more particularly, to see that America is respected again, respected like never before. Great trade deals were made, long-term relationships now exist, and money is pouring into the country because of the tariffs and, frankly, the landslide result of the 2024 presidential election. That's not true. You didn't get any great deals. You got the same deal Joe Biden had. Actually, it's not as good. All right, we know that. The one question that kept coming up, however, was how did the Democrats shut down the United States of America, and why did the powerful Republicans allow them to do it? The fact is, in flying back, I thought a great deal about that question and why. Oh, this is getting interesting now. Majority Leader John Thune and Speaker of the House Mike Johnson are doing a great job, but the Democrats are crazed lunatics that have lost all sense of wisdom and reality. Uh-oh. Sounds like Donald Trump is getting his behind kicked. It is a sick form of now legendary Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, that only comes from losing too much. They want trillions of dollars to be taken from our healthcare system and given to others who are not deserving. People who have come into our country illegally, many from prisons and mental institutions. This will hurt American citizens, and Republicans will not let it happen. Please, get to the good part. It is now time for Republicans to play their, quote, Trump card and go for what is called the nuclear option. Get rid of the filibuster and get rid of it now. Just a short while ago, the Democrats, while in power, fought for 3 years to do this, but were unable to pull it off because of Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Kristen Sinema of Arizona. Never have the Democrats fought so hard to do something because they knew the tremendous strength that terminating the filibuster would give them. Oh, Donnie, please don't make it so easy for us. They want to substantially expand PAC, the United States Supreme Court, make Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico states, thereby automatically picking up 4 Senate seats, many House seats, and at least 8 electoral votes, and many other highly destructive things. No, that's not true. All we want to do is impeach you. Well, now we are in power, and if we did what we should be doing, it would immediately end this ridiculous country-destroying shutdown. If the Democrats ever come back into power, which would be made easier for them if the Republicans are not using the great strength and policies made available to us by ending the filibuster, the Democrats will exercise their rights, and it will be done in the first day they take office, regardless of whether or not we do it. What? What? In addition to all of the other things we would get, such as the best judges, the best U.S. attorneys, the best of everything, this was a concept from years ago of then President Barack Hussein Obama and former Majority Leader Harry Reid in order to take advantage of the Republicans. Now I want to do it in order to take advantage of the Democrats. Translation. Hey, Republicans, your dear leader is in a lot of trouble, and he needs you to hit that panic button to help him get out of this jam that he's gotten himself in by implementing very unpopular policies, all right? That's actually resulting in Americans on the verge of about to starve to death. And so what we need you to do, or what he needs you to do, I should say, is he needs you to go ahead and hit that panic button, because get this, if you don't hit that button, he's going to get impeached real soon, and everybody that's been along, being complicit with this, they're going to be taken down with him as well. So get on it.
Could it affect the December meeting? I'm not saying it's going to, but yeah, you could imagine that what do you do if you're driving in the fog? You slow down. So that could or could not. I don't know how that's going to play into things, but there's a possibility that it would make sense to be more cautious about moving. I'm not committing to that. I'm just saying it's certainly a possibility that you would say, we really can't see, so let's slow down.
That was the Federal Reserve Chairman just a short time ago talking about the future of interest rate cuts and that the Fed may be forced to slow down with any more rate cuts because of fog. What fog? What's he talking about driving in the fog? I promise I'm going to tell you in just 30 seconds. Hang on, but before I do that, you should know that today the Fed cut interest rates by 0.25%. That means the federal funds rate is now sitting at between 3.75% and 4%. This is the second straight meeting where the Fed cut interest rates, and it represents the lowest interest rate we've seen in 3 years. But it was not a unanimous decision because the U.S. economy has 2 different problems. The labor market is definitely weakening, and inflation is definitely going up. Both things are problems for the Fed, but if they deal with one, it may negatively impact the other. So, for example, if the Fed cuts interest rates, which would make it cheaper for employers to borrow more money so they can hire more people, they then run the risk of having inflation go up. And if the Fed raises interest rates to get inflation down, then you run the risk of employers cutting jobs or not creating any new jobs or hiring any new people. You see the problem there? So that's the current situation. But let's talk about this fog. What is he talking about? Well, the fog is being caused by the government shutdown. See, the Fed uses data, not feelings, not vibes, data to make monetary policy decisions, like a decision to cut interest rates. Well, when the government agency that collects and reports all that data is furloughed because of a government shutdown, that means those reports are just not available. For the record, the Fed uses several other pieces of data from outside sources to make decisions, but they definitely rely heavily on what they call the gold standard of data, which is the government data. And without it, the road is foggy. So what Chairman Powell is saying is that depending on how long this government shutdown lasts, that may impact the amount of that gold standard data that the Fed will get before its December meeting. And because the U.S. economy is so tricky with what I'm talking about, the jobs market and the inflation, instead of going ahead with another interest rate cut, which is what was supposed to happen in December, the Fed may just pump the brakes and wait because of that data fog. Now, Chairman Powell also acknowledged something else today that I want to bring up because it is something that you have been talking about in my comments for months. So the gold standard data on jobs from the government has been showing that, yeah, fewer jobs are being added, and yeah, companies aren't hiring as much as they used to, but the unemployment rate is still relatively low. So on the surface, the jobs market looks pretty good. But you've been saying the jobs market is trash and it's impossible to find a job. And when it comes to inflation, the gold standard government data shows that inflation is, yeah, ticking up, but only on certain things. And at the same time, consumer spending is still up. So yeah, things may be a little more expensive, but the American people are just tolerating it fine. But you are saying that is not the case. You can't survive. Things are just too expensive. And you have to get multiple jobs to make ends meet. Well, here's what Powell had to say about that today.
Consumers at the lower end are struggling and buying less and shifting to lower cost products, but that at the top, people are spending at the higher income and wealth, and so much anecdotal data on that. And so we think there's something there. The reason they're so unhappy about inflation is the inflation that we had in 2021, 2, and 3. Because, you can say that prices aren't going up as much, but that doesn't mean people aren't feeling those higher prices from the inflation we had 2 or 3 years ago. They are, and that's, I think, a large part of why the public, if you sample people, inflation is still very much making people quite unhappy. Even, and it's nice that, that prices are not going up as fast as they were, but they're still much higher than they were. And it'll take some time for that effect to wear off. As real incomes rise, it will feel better over time, but that's going to take time.
But the Fed hasn't done anything about it yet because the chairman said the price increases are not done yet.
There will be some additional increase in inflation because it takes a while for tariffs to work their way through the production chain and finally get to consumers. And we see this now from the tariffs that were put in place now many months ago. We see those effects. But if you put tariffs in effect, and they've been coming into effect consistently in February, March, April, May, and that's all happening. So that'll continue to happen for some time, probably into the spring. But then, as all the tariffs are in, they stop generating inflation. You've had a one-time price increase. As long as you're not, at least this is the theory. This is how we believe and hope that it will work out. Once the last tariff is put on something, at that point, it becomes a higher price level, but it stops going up.
This is a response to the MAGA supporters who are in my previous video talking about the fact that this is a Democrat shutdown. It's not a Republican shutdown. First, you're just wrong. It's a Republican shutdown because you own the House, the Senate, the presidency, and you own the Supreme Court as well. You own all areas of the government. So it's your responsibility. It's the Republican responsibility. Mike Johnson just shut everything down and sent everybody away because he doesn't want to swear in the final representative who was elected, who will open up the vote for the Epstein files to be released. That's issue number one. Issue number two is that I do believe that Trump is excited to leave all of the SNAP benefits on the bench and not put them out for people who are in need. That would be 42 million people who are in need of SNAP benefits, because he's dying for people to rise up and go start fighting for anything and everything, but especially making people desperate because they're trying to feed their families. And if they get desperate, they'll do desperate things. And he can't wait to start martial law so that he can then say, we're not having the 2026 elections, because that's what he really doesn't want to have happen. The real issue that the Democrats are fighting for, and you can find this in the New York Times today, is the expiration of the subsidies for the healthcare benefits for the ACA or Obamacare. For those of you who don't know, the ACA is Obamacare. It's the same thing. So for those of you who don't understand that healthcare.gov is Obamacare, they are the same thing. I know that's hard for you to understand. It's been a decade now, and y'all are still having trouble understanding that, but it's the same thing, okay? The New York Times is reporting that 30% will be the average increase of everybody who has healthcare programs through the ACA or Obamacare. 30% is the average. I have friends whose insurance, they've already gotten their letter from them, and it says they're going to go up from $750 a month to $4,000 a month. $48,000 a year will be their health insurance for two people. Two people. Who do you know that can pay $48,000 a year for their health insurance? Millionaires and billionaires is what I'm guessing, because it's certainly not any of us regular people. The only request that the Democrats have had for the Republicans to open the government is for them to ensure that those subsidies will remain in place so that the American people, the normal people like us, won't have to pay $48,000 or around that area for the same health care that they've been getting in the past. We need those subsidies to keep from going broke, or we just won't get insurance, because how can any of us possibly pay those numbers? So the Democrats are fighting for us to keep the subsidies in place so we don't have to pay lots of money to the insurance companies, because the insurance companies are going to get their money one way or another. So I get it, Republicans. It's very confusing for you to understand that. No, not Republicans, MAGA people. It's hard for you to understand that a rise in insurance rates is a bad thing for us. Not just Democrats, you as well. It's a bad thing. We can't have that. The Democrats are trying to save you from yourself. And I have to read this one to you. Dr. Oz, who is the administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, said at a press conference on yesterday, that the fundamental reality for most Americans is that although it is an increase in spending, it's not a big issue. Of course, I'm sure you're just fine with changing your monthly payment from $750 to $4,000. It's not a big issue. Why should you worry about it? Don't worry about it. That's just a minimal spend, according to Dr. Oz. Andrea Salinas, an Oregon Democrat, says that people are going to literally be shocked when they see the prices no longer reflect the more generous subsidies that had been in place before. And shocked is an understatement. The ACA, or Obamacare, is going to be open on Saturday, November 1st, and you'll get to log in and see what the price differences are compared to what you've been paying in the past. Ultimately, the Democrats are fighting for you, MAGA, Republicans, those of you who decided you didn't want to vote because everybody's the same. Clearly, they're not. But the Democrats are still voting and fighting for you to receive those healthcare subsidies so that you can actually afford healthcare. That is literally the only thing that the Democrats are requesting from the Republicans. So don't talk to me or any other Democrat about this is the Democrats' fault, and if they would just vote for the clean CR, then it would be fine. You don't understand what a clean CR is. You have no idea. Clearly, that's it. Because all we're holding out for is to help the American people not go into debt or not have to have insurance because they simply cannot afford it because the subsidies are going to be gone. So you're welcome. Even though you're selfish and you don't understand what's happening, you're welcome. They're doing it for you.